the time that came upon her for her to give birth. And she gives birth to Jesus. And she wrapped the babe in swaddling cloths, as we're told in verse 7, and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now that sets the stage for what we see in verse 8 and brings us to our joyless shepherds. Look at verse 8. In the same region, there were shepherds out in the field keeping watch over their flock by night. Let me just talk for a moment about why, if we used the terminology of that article that I read about joyless professions, why a shepherd might be considered a joyless job. It's a low quality, low responsibility, low pay. So let's think about those things. Low quality, well, you would live outdoors all the time. You would go out in the fields, not just for the day, but the fields were often far from your home. And so you went out to take the sheep out. It may be that you're staying out there all day long. You have to be there because you're watching after the sheep to protect them, make sure they don't wander off or get lost. That you go out there and you spend all day with them. Sometimes you're spending the night with them. If you know much about sheep are dumb, they're dirty, and they're boring. There's just not a lot to them. And so if that is your job, that is your profession, it's just a low-quality job. Just about anybody could be a shepherd. If you remember the story of David, remember he was a shepherd, what? Boy. So even a boy could go out and watch over the sheep. So what responsibility? You just watch the sheep. There may be a moment of excitement every once in a while when some vicious animal may come along. You have to fight that animal off. But 99% of the time, it's just a boring, low responsibility kind of job. And the pay, well, it's low pay. Shepherds mostly lived in poverty. The owners usually, unless they only held a few heads of the flock, the owners were often someone else, and you worked for somebody who owned the sheep. So there's not a lot of pay in it. They lived in poverty. And so if you are a shepherd, your status as a shepherd in society is that you are low on the totem pole. No one aspired to be a shepherd. Joyless. So what's going on that night? I mean, there's just another boring, long, boring, joyless night. And then this happened, verse 9. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with great fear. I just want to consider the pivot that goes on in this moment. They went from a quiet, boring night to boom! Angel showing up. Did I wake you up? That's what happened with the shepherds. Suddenly, angels appearing, glory shining all around them, and their response is great fear, great apprehension, great anxiety. Suddenly things became a whole lot less boring. I don't know about you, but I sort of see some parallels to what happened to those shepherds out on that somewhat boring night to what is happening to us in this year in 2020. Maybe like the rest of us, you were just trucking along with your life, going to work, going to school, raising your family, just doing life. Life was a little boring, but it was consistent. But maybe there wasn't a whole lot of joy going on in your life, maybe a little joyless. And then suddenly things pivoted very quickly. Things got exciting very quickly. COVID hit us. The economy screeched to a halt. People started getting sick, and they're still getting sick. People started losing jobs, and that's where the fear came. Great fear, great apprehension, great anxiety. And listen, COVID hasn't just taken a physical toll on people, it's also taken a mental toll upon us all. The study just came out just in the last week or so. Gallup conducted a poll that they do every single year upon the mental health of Americans. And here's what the poll said, that 34% of Americans have found their mental health to be excellent right now. Just 34%. Now, what's helpful for us to know what that means for us is to compare it to last year. Last year, if you look at the poll in 2019, when Gallup conducted this very same poll, it was 43%. So 43% of people last year said that their mental health was excellent. But now we get into 2020 and it's only 34%. And by the way, that's the worst that it's been with this poll in nearly 2 decades. Our mental health as a society is in decline, and it came with such sudden change. Remember all faith over fear signs that we had? Some of you put those signs away. Those didn't work, apparently, for a lot of people. Now listen, it worked for many of us. In fact, it actually did work for one group. If you go back to that Gallup poll, there was one group that stood out among all of the rest. When it came to evaluating your mental health, the group that scored the highest were regular churchgoers. The Gallup survey looked at all kinds of groups. The only group that claimed any kind of improvement in mental health were people who were attending religious services weekly. Imagine this. We're in one of the most difficult years in all of our lifetimes, and among those who are of faith, who have been regularly participating in religious services, rather than seeing that the statistic of those who say that our mental health has declined, those that are attending church on a regular basis have said that our mental health has actually improved from 2019 to 2020 by 4 points.
Thank you, Jesus.
So don't tell me that faith doesn't matter. And don't tell